democracy means. However, when you have a vast unelected bureaucracy that is not answerable to the public, and if the elected officials, if the president, the people in Congress and the Senate actually don't have the power to affect the bureaucracy, and it's actually extremely difficult to affect the bureaucracy, then you do not have rule of the people. You do not have democracy. You have rule of the bureaucracy. And this is obviously wrong. It is unconstitutional. And it is imperative, therefore, that we return power to the people of the country and not have tyranny of the bureaucracy, which we most definitely have had to follow to a degree that is absurd. As Vic said, it's not just that there's an unconstitutional fourth branch of the government, but it is arguably the most powerful branch of the government. Joni, I see you're back. Would you?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Yep.
I apologize, gentlemen. Yes, it hopped to my laptop. I've been working on this for, as Elon said, over a decade now with my Squeal Awards. And there are many in Congress that actually really do care about this.
Absolutely.
The problem, I think, is there are not enough of us that have. And so while I highlight a lot of the abuses, and you wanted some anecdotes, Elon, and I've shared a number of those with you and
got
Vivek.
Some zingers, so I think if the public just, it's hard to resonate. It's hard for the public to resonate with statistics but people can really resonate with powerful anecdotes.
Joni had a bunch of them. Yeah, you had a bunch of them, Joni.
Yeah, I did. Sending kitties to spas to find out whether they produce less fur balls, heck up less fur balls. So yeah, we've spent taxpayer money on that. We put shrimp on a treadmill to see how fast they run. I'm sorry, all of these things, while they may be fun, why are we spending taxpayer dollars on them? And it goes to the point of we've sent millions of dollars to China to study what? COVID.
Yes,
we saw how that ended.
In fact, it's pretty outrageous that the COVID, the virus, was developed in what is a lab in Wuhan, and yet was funded by U.S. tax dollars, which was simply routed through this fake nonprofit EcoHealth, because the U.S. government can't give directly to China, so they just gave to EcoHealth, knowing that it would go to China. So our U.S. tax dollars were used effectively to, in the end, kill Americans, which is insane.
Absolutely insane. And I know, Elon, you have been on AID. You have really, and
that's the hornet's nest for sure.
This was another one of my efforts. Yes. And this began years ago when we were trying to figure out what they were doing with our American taxpayer dollars that were going to support humanitarian efforts in Ukraine. So I wanted to know exactly how those dollars were being spent. And not just
a reasonable request.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I shared this with you earlier, Elon, just privately, but we got all kinds of threats from USAID because I was trying to exercise my oversight capacity in Congress. So
that's just shocking. Honestly, it's outrageous that a taxpayer-funded organization would threaten a U.S. senator who is simply trying to figure out if American taxpayer money is being spent correctly and not fraudulently.
Yes. And so what my staff and I had estimated was that 30 to 40% of the USAID's awards would go to indirect costs. So their overhead, their rent, employees, things like that.
Rent. What are they living in, the Taj Mahal?
Hey, but Vivek, okay, after months and months of obstruction where UN wouldn't let us in, they told us the NICRA, the negotiated indirect cost rate agreements, it's a lot of government jargon, but anyway, the indirect cost, they said that the database, it doesn't exist. That was a lie. That was a lie. It was false because we found it. And then we were told we weren't allowed to access the database. And then that's when Congressman McCall and I came together and we launched an official congressional investigation so that we could gain access to the rates.
Wow.
And then after about 6 more months of negotiations, Then my staff was finally allowed to access very limited data. They were allowed to go into a room and they couldn't take notes. They were on camera the whole time. They couldn't remove any of the information. But what my staff found is you were laughing at that 30 to 40% because that is outrageous. That was understated.
What?
In some of the cases, the NICRA rates were upwards towards anywhere from 50 to 60%. And that doesn't include the cost for subcontractors, what the subcontractors were adding on. So this is the problem with USAID. And that's why, Elon, I'm with you on this because so much of that taxpayer money is not even going to, we love to feel good about helping starving children and name your country, but it's not going there. It's going to pay rents in Paris.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to support somebody's fancy dinner to
100%.
Entertain whoever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, to be clear, in shutting down, which we're in the process of doing, shutting down USAID, the reason for that, as opposed to simply trying to do some minor house cleaning, is that as we dug into USAID, it became apparent that what we have here is not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a bowl of worms. And so at the point at which you don't merely, if you've got an apple that's got a worm in it, maybe you can take the worm out. But if you've got actually just a bowl of worms, it's hopeless. And USAID is a bowl of worms. There is no apple. And when there is no apple, you've just got to basically get rid of the whole